Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Energy Unleashed. We are in 2025, Miss Kim. Oh, God. How many people are so thrilled about letting go of 2024, right?
Well, a lot of people. Oh my goodness.
Oh,
Yes, it's a new beginning. I keep feeling like it's a new beginning. So
but then my little fear goes, that's how I felt last year and the year before and the year before.
I know we start out
Actually,
good.
well, and that's kind of I think what I would like to talk about today in terms of, I'm seeing some consistencies in client work. I have been really actually quite busy now that the holiday rush is over and people probably that New Year's resolution that I got to get my shit together, so, make an appointment. But I'm seeing some real I think trends in how people are handling the energy right now. And last year was so effed up that it was just insane for so many people. And I think it was so hard to go from a trajectory of crazy intense politics and then right into holidays and family garbage for so many people.
Yeah.
I'm really fortunate I don't have a whole lot of triggers around family stuff because I mean we do it all the time, so it's not like, but I think that this trajectory just never stopped. And now all of a sudden it's like, ugh. And
Yeah.
it feels like hopefully a bit of a stability in the energies that's not as chaotic feeling out in the so-called matrix when I go out. When I'm doing anything astrally, it feels a little bit more balanced, a little bit more I don't want to say calm because it's not, but
Yeah.
it's more stable to an extent. Does that make sense? A little bit.
Well, it does. I think the last quarter energetically was such a roller coaster. And like
Yeah.
you said, not only with the energetic, we had a lot of solar flares, we had a lot of
Mhm.
spikes in the Schumann resonance, we had, just so much going on just energetically. And then you add in all the other stuff like politics and the
Yeah.
election and world things that are so disturbing. And so I think that emotionally, physically for sure it's been really challenging that last quarter. And I don't know if I've listened to Lee Harris a little while ago, and one of the things that he said is people are starting, really taking January to hunker down and reset because it was so turbulent and challenging, and there was a lot of seemed like there was a lot of death, and not only just people that we know, but like singers and movie stars and you know political people, and it was just a lot of death. And so I think there's a lot of grief that goes along with that too. And
And
so
I
I
think
think
the grief is bigger than that, though. I think that the grief is also what we talk a lot about in our Vibe Tribe online group is that we've been grieving a lot of timeline deaths for quite this most of this year, and it really ramped up at the end of the year. So yes, we're grieving real life so-called 3D deaths, but we're also grieving, through politics, for example, you're going to grieve or not grieve what you thought was going to happen or not going to happen. The
mm-hmm,
the so-called narration of what my future is going to look like. We grieve all of those things. But
mm-hmm,
energetically, we're also grieving because we're compacting or we're collapsing so much of our timelines of our own individuality, meaning I'm letting go of a 6-year-old Suzanne, much less a 26-year-old Suzanne, much less maybe a
mm-hmm,
46-year-old Suzanne. And it's like, oh my gosh, all of those timeline memories are collapsing, which is a good thing because they're going back to your individual Akash. And that's all fine and dandy. But when we don't study this stuff and understand it, we are letting go of things or letting go of grieving, and it doesn't make sense. And so we feel even more sad, which then throws more
mm-hmm.
sadness into the collective, and we glom onto each other's sadness, and it just keeps going. Does that
Oh yeah,
does that just show
totally.
you how crazy this gets? I mean, it's
it,
nuts.
it is really really crazy, and it's such a ebb and flow
Hmm.
that you have a day where you're just taken down, with
Yeah.
the sadness and the grief, depending on what's going on in the collective. And then there's a day where everything's bright and happy, and and it's like boom, you're in it again. It's like, what is going on?
And I
I
don't think
just
that's going to go away real soon because it is one day butterflies and rainbows, and the next day shit hits the fan. And I think this
Mhm,
is really, really important for us to understand because there's so much repositioning going on in the bigger hologram of our multiverses. And this is something people don't really think about or study or really get into, which is just fine and dandy, but it doesn't mean it's not doing it. It doesn't mean it's
mhm,
not happening. And so I also said with our vibe group, 6, 7 months ago, that January, February is going to be pretty stable, in my opinion. And again, what do
mhm.
I know? It's just my thought. but take it or leave it. But I felt January, February felt pretty stable for a little bit because I really do think things are going to go bonkers again in that equinox period. Equinox would be March,
Hmm.
middle of March 21st, 2021, whatever. And I have this feeling that everything's going to go "Wah," like it often does. And so it feels when Lee Harris says things are hibernating, I think people are also doing a preparation. It's almost
Yeah.
like when you nest before you have your baby. That's what it
Yeah.
feels like.
Right. And then when you're hibernating like this, I think it's important not to make necessarily huge like decisions that are going to keep you in a certain track, because when you're hibernating like this, I feel like that's part of your change in your
Right.
own being, that things are going to look a little different as you're going through that healing process, I guess.
And again, that's why you're right in that leave it open-ended because
Mhm.
when we get through this so-called tunnel, it makes me think sometimes of a roller coaster. Right when you think that you're going straight, which is the hibernation period, all of a sudden it's going to go whoop, 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 and you're going to like, March, April's like, what the heck? So why really invest a lot in this is what I want happening as much as
Yeah.
I'm just going to ride it. I'm just going to ride it. I'm
Yeah.
just going to ride it. Hands up.
Yeah. Well, I'm finding it hard to make decisions about, even, do we want to take a trip
Yeah.
like sometime this year? Do we want to, work on something around that? Do we want to? And I'm like, I'm having a really hard time landing on anything. And whenever that happens, um, I really have to take that step back, because at some point it'll become a little more clear what I'm supposed to do. Right.
Right.
Like, and I try to force it because being a doer, and it's all habit, old habit. And I realize when I try and force it, it doesn't work out that way anyway. And you end up doing whatever you're meant to do to begin with.
Well, and
So,
again, you're talking the real energy is pushing us to stop doing the old habit. The real
mhm.
energy is saying, why are you going to that old thing of I have to plan my life out in 6 months or 6 years? Because it's not anything that you think it's going to look like. So why are you doing that? And so this is a really big universal push from source to just say, just hold on in the present moment and see what it feels like. And that's not
Mhm.
normal for so many people. But it does get easier, doesn't it? I think it's
Mhm.
easier and easier when you practice that presence.
Mhm.
But yeah, it's a big deal.
Well, and
It's
I think what's hard is coming out of the 3D holiday, like, probably, like, again, the election, right into Thanksgiving, going through all the changes that were happening, plus then, the holiday season through the new year. Like,
yeah,
you're go, 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 and you're doing certain things depending on what you decide to do. And then you're sitting there and you're like, well, what am I going to do next?
yeah,
And that's that smack in the face of, just hold your horses for a minute there, lady.
yeah,
Sit back, maybe journal and do some really cool things and learn some things, so
right?
that, yeah, just take the time. Take the time.
Yeah. I know. Well, I'm not so great at that either, but we
Yeah.
Minnesotans have a little bit of an advantage when it's freezing cold that it's like, oh, I think I'm just going to not go out and do that right now. I mean, I
Yeah.
find myself doing that, but I think that next step that you talked about is great advice too. Do something productive in terms of your spirit, then do journaling,
Hmm.
do whatever. Yeah, this whole last year really upset the apple cart in a lot of triggers for people. The other common denominator that I've been seeing is women. I mean, generally speaking, most of my practice is women, but even within that group, I've been finding this like late 30s to late 40s, pretty much a career woman. She may or may not have kids, doesn't matter. Lots of them are very positioned in terms of social justice for women. And I think because of the politics that we just went through,
Hmm.
that rug got pulled out really hard for a lot of people. And it's really important for us to look collectively and individually. And so when we find that many clients going, I am so individually being shut down in my voice again, which isn't really, thought I got through that, or I thought I changed that, or I thought I worked through that with therapy or spiritual work or whatever. But so many are having trouble with their voices again, and their throats
Hmm.
again, and their eyes and their heads, and this whole upper chakra thing going down to the solar plexus, and solar plexus connecting and going in a tentacle around my throat. I mean, that's so much indicates as a practitioner, male energy is shutting down my voice. Male energy is making this trigger of not being seen, not being heard, not being recognized. And what one wants to remember is the reason why it's triggering in everybody individually again is because this is actually dismantling in the collective hologram. This is a really big program that's been crumbling for quite some time since Mother God energies have come in way back in what,
hmm
2019-ish. And when Mother God energies comes in, it rocks that patriarchal male energy, and then Mother Divine comes, and then Father Divine has to come. And we've been doing this since about 2019. We're coming 6 years into this crap. And so a lot of dismantling of this women's stuff. And then we add in 3D versions of that. What happens, in Iran, and when Iran and Iraq, when the women are treated the way that they're treated
hmm
in other third world countries. And then we have all of a sudden our own politics and what's happening with our women's rights and our bodies and da da da. So this is feeling very chaotic, and it feels very angry, and it feels very upsetting. And my advice, if you choose to take it, is realize that it's coming forward again and again and again because it's actually dismantling.
hmm
And to work through it in an individualized way is very important for you to go back in and really analyze my upbringing and what my beliefs were and what happened with me and understand this is part of my soul contract and yada yada, because we're all dismantling this right now. And I'm not leaving the men out of this equation because a lot of them are being aware of it, but this is
hmm
being taken on by the females, hands down right now. It's just crazy.
Can you, like, for someone who's just joining and maybe, because I know we've talked about it a little bit before, but male energy, what does that really mean when you say that?
Well, what happened ages and ages ago, and we're talking, early Egyptian, Sumerian, Babylonian, when everything changed as far as how we worked as humans, we became enslaved to a lot of programming. And that was the first times when we succumbed to allowing mind control programming of a level. And that's only increased in levels and levels and levels over years and years and eons. I mean,
hmm
so we have been controlled in terms of the female energy, because the male energy, especially the God source energy, became the he, and it became dominant, and it became
hmm
patriarchal because it was easier to control. And as that grew, the women were taken out, taken out. Again, that's because this is a thought vibration, this is an emotion vibration. If we can remove your emotion, we can control your thought. Okay. So
hmm
that male energy became very patriarchal box energy, top down. We're going to tell you what to do. We're going to tell you how to act. When we throw the emotion back in 6, 7 years ago, we're starting to go, well, wait a minute, maybe I don't feel like that's right. I don't feel like I want to do that. I don't feel like I'm heard. And when this starts activating over here, this rocks that male patriarchal. You can feel it's just crumbling as an energy form, right? And
hmm
this has a lot to do with years and years of women being suppressed and
hmm
women being abused. And this goes into the way bigger program. We did a podcast on it not that long ago about the women and the children that are really being, abused and sacrificed, et cetera, et cetera. So these are really large
hmm
programs that are breaking down. And when they're breaking down in the biggest scope of our reality, it will always trigger the individual that has some chord of that still in their narration from their upbringing. It'll
hmm
bring that trigger back up again.
Yeah, and I think I mean, it's because we've been doing this for how long? Like releasing old beliefs, old programming, all of those things. And it could be looking at your current relationships too that are based on the old beliefs. Like, um, how do I say that? Like, if your father was a certain way and treated women a certain way, if you're in a relationship with someone that has the very same kind of behaviors, it could be even triggering this more for you,
For
you
sure.
know, at
And
this
so
time.
you're
But
you're doing not only individual healing, but oftentimes what I'm seeing over and over in my office right now is the females are carrying on lineage healing like
hmm
crazy as far as women power and women's suppression. Huge trend right now, and has been for a while, and is going to continue until this is completely destroyed in terms of the program. It's going to take a while. But one of the reasons this is becoming bigger and bigger and stronger is because when this God energy came in the female emotional really dominant role
hmm
of being powerful as a woman, it reactivated a lot of the priestess energy. And so the awakening females, which are, it's still, it's kind of sad, but it's still about, 70% of the people that are doing the awakening process are still female, right?
hmm
and they are remembering their Lemurian and their Atlantean priesthoods, and they're
Hmm.
remembering a lot of this stuff. And I'm hoping that the men catch up pretty soon in terms of not the patriarchal, the real priest in them. And they are remembering the power of the rituals and the druid and all of the earth
Hmm.
energies, which is activating the earth, which is activating everything. So this is an ongoing activation that's happening in every realm. And that's why this is coming forward again and again and again. And ultimately, hopefully, the goal is to break down all this crap and garbage that's going on behind the veil that people don't want to think about, that we talked about, that is
Hmm.
hard to think about. It's
Right.
hard to think about. I don't want to think about that. It doesn't mean it's not there. That means you're consenting. And I loved the comments, by the way, on that particular. We don't get a lot of comments, but man, when we do, I was so excited because they were just literally writing in capital letters, I do not consent. And I'm like, oh my God, that was just so awesome because by
Yeah.
not doing anything, we are consenting to a lot of this stuff. And this is still a really big problem that people don't understand energetically.
Oh, absolutely. It is so, going through this process, it was very difficult to get to that point and recognize when I should be thinking that or saying that out loud.
Hmm.
Because you go through and it's like, whatever. Okay.
Yep.
It's not my thing. Blah, 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 blah. You don't realize
Yep.
how much you are impacting, the consciousness of one with not acknowledging and then, putting out that you don't consent.
And just think, we can do this by, standing in the middle of our living room screaming at the TV saying, I do not consent when we see horrible things on the news. We
Mm-hmm.
can say it to the boss that still steps over the line and says, we don't care what you think in this meeting. Well, oh, okay, but I don't consent to that. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
there's boundaries that we can be pushing as women right now that continue this deterioration of a really bad mind program that, the woman is still inferior. And it's
Mm-hmm.
gonna take a lot of effort, but sometimes I scratch my head when I keep thinking about how many people are on this planet. When you sit there and say that number, 7.9 billion with a B,
Billion.
and you're like, and we still haven't crumbled this crap. And we
Mm-hmm.
could do this in 24 hours. We could do it in 2 hours. We could do this in 24 hours if people understood the waves of energy and how this stuff works. And we, by not paying attention, have consented for eons. And so I think that this whole triggering thing from the political race is awesome in that people are starting to go, no. But again, these women are amazing. They're frustrated, they're angry, they're irritated.
Mm-hmm.
And I do my best as a practitioner to say, channel all that to the Akash, channel it out to the public, channel it
Mm-hmm.
out in a great and positive way so this crap changes instead of just making yourself sick, you
But
know?
also do it in a way that's balanced between the feminine and the male.
Yep.
Because I think when I look back at the 70s, and maybe this is just me, but how they approached women's rights in some ways made it so masculine.
Oh my God,
And
remember we used
so,
to wear ties and these
yeah.
things, shoulder pads.
Well, but also that, I think it started to hurt the family structure sometimes, depending
Yeah,
on how far you took it, because you didn't have the nurturing and the
right.
time, with your children because you didn't need to do that anymore. Somebody else is going to take care of your child,
Yeah.
through daycare and whatever. And so I think it's really important to be balanced between the two through this next phase because otherwise it will be too much one way or the other, however that goes into the consciousness. So I don't know if
Pendulum
that makes
always
sense.
swings, and the hard part is to remember that no matter what sex we're sitting in a human form, our job is to know the balance within ourself first of the
Mm-hmm.
male and the female. Just because I'm in a male form doesn't mean I'm not the nurturant parent, etc. So
Right.
find that combination of what that works for within yourself and with your partner and your family. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, there are no rules. There isn't a right and a wrong to any of this, but we know when we're imbalanced. And a lot of these
Mm-hmm.
poor women are very frustrated right now, which is rightly so when you don't feel heard or acknowledged. But my
Mm-hmm.
goal, oftentimes for my work that I do, is to understand that I don't really have to be validated by you to own my truth.
Right.
I
Yeah.
really don't have to have your validation to be heard because I really don't. But still, to be perfectly honest, we humans
Yeah.
like that. I mean, there's a piece of us that likes to be validated and heard, and that's a human thing. So again, find the balance even there.
Oh, yeah. If you're standing on a point and stubborn about a point of whatever you are in an argument or whatever it might be, just to be right,
Yeah.
That's not balanced.
No.
That's not being open to
No, that's
the
still fear.
conversation at all. That's fear. It's
Yeah.
very much fear. So
Yeah. So
yeah,
again, I think that this is it's going to be a breather after the craziness, like you said, in my
mhm,
opinion. Again, I think, and we're on the same page with this, I think that this first month, month and a half, into the middle of February, mid to end February, some things start to happen in the inner earth changes, a lot of the holographic structure changes with some solidity, meaning it's more solid. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to feel real good because it's
mhm.
going to be different for us again. That's going to probably affect the Schumann resonance. When the Schumann goes off, our root chakra starts to get shaky and starts to go, oh, 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 and I wish people would maybe consider following that a little bit more to say, oh, I feel so uncomfortable right now. Let me check the Schumann resonance.
Right? Why is
Yeah,
my lower body part of my body vibrating right now? I don't
yeah,
understand.
yeah. And you can just do that online. I mean,
Yeah,
and you're way better at the Schumann graphs than I am. I kind of suck at those. I
I'm more
always,
sensitive to it. I
yeah.
think because I'm more earth ground, more earth bound. I think than
Yeah, then I get my
cosmic
butt kicked when the
and
solar
the
flares
cosmos.
come.
Yeah, you're up here, and then I know it's coming.
Yep. Yep. Good matcher. Yeah, so be aware of that because I do think that we are in this small reprieve. And again,
Mhm,
a small reprieve can be a lovely time to just do that nesting.
mhm.
And like you said, I thought really good advice from you. Just don't think that you know your trajectory just because you're taking that breather. Just kind of be open to wow, what's coming.
Well, I had the New Year's Day, and I was like, all right, what does my future look like? What am I doing? What am I going to do for this year? And oh my gosh, I started laughing at myself. I'm like, what are you doing? Like, take a breather,
Yeah.
sit back, and then it was validation. I'm going to say after listening to Lee Harris and talking to you, I was like, yes, of course. Supposed to take a reset. Just take a
Yeah.
little time to let your body calm down and your all of it, your energy to just balance out more.
Yeah,
So,
and let go of the holiday garbage because it is a
hmm
lot. That's a lot of programming. Again, that is that male energy programming of you have to buy stuff, you have to give stuff, you have to get
hmm
stuff. We have to spend money, and then you look at your checking account and you're like, oh crap, now I spent too much money. I ate too much
hmm
food, and everything comes whoop like that. And it's a lot. And so it's
it's
really
all of
nice
it.
to just be, and I noticed that you got lucky enough to just stay up north and stare at the water. So did you,
I
before
did.
picking up, did you do Northern Lights up there pretty well?
No, it was
Okay.
cloudy when the northern lights were happening, but now that it's been clear and super damn cold.
Yeah.
The stars are incredible at night. And so I
Yeah.
was out there for a little while trying to see because there were supposed to be shooting stars from all of the debris that was going through a couple nights ago. And I was out there for a while and I'm like, all right, damn it, nope, I don't
Nope.
see anything. Plus I heard
Cool.
something in the forest moving around. So I'm like, okay, I'm in.
Yep. Thanks anyway, Bigfoot. Well, keep your eyes in the skies too, because there's a lot going on, and Venus is really powerful right now, and it's fun to see. There's some really big action coming off of that star. We
Yeah,
talked
we were
about we
yeah,
were texting the other night. It has some really good shoot off kind of like really cool views from Venus, and I think that that's fun to stare at right now because it's so crispy and cold here.
it
So,
has been so bright and like making the lake look kind of bright.
yeah.
It's crazy how bright and how beautiful that star or the Venus is right now.
And let's
And
suck in some love from that planet because that's the love planet, right?
yeah, and the full moon is what on Sunday? Is it Sunday? The 13th. When is the 13th?
Yeah, a little bit yet, but
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
about a week.
So it'll
Yeah.
be very bright and beautiful then.
Yeah,
So
cool. All right, everybody. Well, take what resonates, toss the rest. Thank you for listening. Maybe hit the share button, like button, and maybe let a friend know about us because we would love to
yeah,
share a message.
that would be
All right.
great.
All
Happy New
right.
Year.
Cool. You
Bye.
too. Cosmic hugs.